Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by the Anbu. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 5, Schoolyard Fights. 5 years old? A blonde child huddled under the stairs, waiting with bated breath, mentally counting down the seconds. He had to restart twice because he lost his place, and so was a good 30 seconds off when. Crash! Bang! Splatter! Crack tinkle tinkle! Crackle! Swoosh! There was a long, intense pause. Then. Naruto! The child flinched, his grin unwavering. Whoo, Daddy sounded angry. This one must have been good. Naruto! Get out here! Naruto's smile slipped a bit. Okay, Daddy really was mad. Whoops. See, this was the crucial downfall of each of Naruto's plots. He always forgot that there would be consequences for his experiments. Hatake Naruto. I'm going to give you a 10-second immunity. If you're not out here in that time, you will be punished for hiding from me. Okay, Daddy was still screaming. The only time Daddy yelled was when he was world-endingly mad. Time to do as he was told. Naruto quickly squirmed out of his hiding place and trotted to where he could hear his father counting down. He found him in the hallway, beside the door leading into the kitchen. His chest was smeared with blue paint, some of which had been blackened with the fire, and was glaring something awful with one eye as water trickled from his hair down his bare back. He'd just gotten out of the shower, and was only half-dressed. Naruto winced, cringing away from the furious expression on his father's bared face. I'm sorry? He said tentatively. Kakashi pointed one hand at the open doorway, and Naruto took the cue to look. There were blue paint and glass shards everywhere, and black fire marks dotted liberally throughout the kitchen, and water pooling on every surface. What? Kakashi said, his voice shaking just a little as he tried to rein in the emotions warring inside him and remember that it was a 5-year-old who had done this. Who knew someone so small could cause so much damage? Did you hope to accomplish by putting paint in the coffee machine, and then switching the machine on? Naruto looked away and scuffed the floor with one bare foot. Well, I found the paint, and I was wondering if making it hot'd make it dry, and so I thought I'd put it in the coffee maker. It was a experiment. Kakashi closed his eye. An experiment. Of course. This child would be the death of him. But oh, what a way to go. Naruto, remember what I told you about doing experiments? What were the rules I gave you? Naruto bit his lip. I have to tell you, Daddy, and you have to say it's okay, and not inside the house? Right. Kakashi felt himself calming down and tried to think rationally. No one had gotten hurt, although now he had a trash kitchen and a blue, highly ticked pug dog to track down. Naruto hadn't meant any harm. Nevertheless, he had broken the rules. Rules his father had lain down to protect him and the people and things around him, such as Pakken and his poor kitchen. You've broken all 3 of those rules, Naruto, and so you are going to have to be punished. God, how he hated those big blue eyes. Stupid, stupid blue eyes staring at him with such remorse and guilt, silently asking for mercy. Kakashi ruthlessly squashed any thoughts of going easy on the brat. No allowance for a month, he decided. Since his 5th birthday, Naruto had been receiving a small amount of pocket money every week to spend however he wished, in a bid from his father to teach him how to handle and appreciate money. And bed an hour early for 2 weeks. And you can go run laps in the yard for as long as it takes me to clean up this mess. Do you understand? Yes, Daddy. Naruto, for his part, looked genuinely repentant. I'm sorry. Kakashi let it hang for a moment, before nodding at him. I forgive you, he said gravely. For your information, paint is flammable, and so when exposed to the high pressure and temperature inside the coffee maker, it caught fire, causing the coffee maker to explode and splattering burning paint over the whole room. I then used the Swate Unjutsu to put out the flames. Cool! Naruto exploded, eyes lighting up at the mental image. Then he caught sight of his father's expression and winced, sobering instantly. Sorry. I should not done it. Kakashi groaned. Go get dressed properly, he said to the young boy standing before him in his pajamas. And I'll do the same, and then we'll get you started on your laps while I start cleaning up this mess. Naruto nodded and turned to run away, stumbling twice on the way up the stairs, but made it to his room without major injury. Quickly, he squirmed into his day clothes, knocking over a pile of 8 to 10-year-olds' adventure books written in kanji he'd received as a gift from his father for his birthday 2 months beforehand. Plunking down on the floor, he wrapped the set of training weights his father had deemed him ready for around each of his shins. They were really very light, only weighing about 1 kilogram combined, but it was still significant for a 5-year-old, and rested on his special weighted jacket, which weighed a total of 3 kilograms distributed evenly over his back, chest, and shoulders. The whole point was to build up the strength in his young body. Naruto didn't like the way the weights dragged at him, nor the way he always felt tired and sore at the end of the day when he'd worn them, but he liked the way they made stuff that used to be easy a challenge, like the game was new all over again. And he liked that they would help him grow up to be a big strong ninja just like Daddy. There was almost nothing Naruto wouldn't do to achieve his dream of being just like his daddy. He even consented to eat the icky green things Daddy was forever putting on his plate. Naruto thought they were called vegetables. Ick. After checking in with his father in the hallway again, he trotted to the yard and began his punishment laps, keeping to a jog because he knew he'd likely be running for a long time. Watching him, Kakashi sighed heavily and began collecting brooms, mops, and cleaning rags. This was going to take work. Kakashi scrubbed listlessly at a patch of dried paint. He wasn't even halfway done, but he knew he'd have to take pity on Naruto and let him stop soon. The child had been running for the last hour, with only 2 10-minute drink breaks. Maybe he'd set him studying instead. Another 10 minutes dragged by, and Kakashi put down his cleaning cloth, moving to the door leading from kitchen to yard and calling, Naruto. That's enough. Walk a lap, then come inside. The blonde stopped running immediately and gave a tired nod, panting hard. Kakashi smiled under his mask at the thought that there was a chance Naruto would actually sleep during his nap today, rather than just pretending and crawling out of bed to play every time he thought his father was too far away to hear. Giving up, Kakashi lay aside the cleaning gear and moved to the, miraculously untouched, refrigerator, pulling out food and beginning to ferry it to the table in the dining room. Wash your hands and come sit down, he called when he heard the door open and close. Water ran in the trashed kitchen as Naruto washed his hands in the sink there, and the sound of small feet pattered through the house for a few moments before a little head poked sheepishly into the dining room. Upon discerning that Daddy was not indeed still angry, Naruto grinned and came in to plunk at the Eastern-style table, crossing his legs and shuffling the cushion that served as a chair closer to the low wooden surface. Kakashi sat down opposite him and quickly set a meal in front of him, idly listening to Naruto's babbling. I ran 37 times around the yard, and I'm so hungry now but am tired too, and I think after this can I not do my lessons yet please cause I don't think I'll think good and… Well, Kakashi interjected. You won't concentrate well. Naruto didn't even pause to acknowledge the correction, and just kept right on talking, only stopping with a cry of delight when his father finally grew tired of the chatter and placed Oink on the table. You found him! Naruto exclaimed, grabbing the toy and hugging it close. Oink! He was lost but you got him back. Daddy, you're the best ever. Kakashi watched, amused, as the 5-year-old fussed over his previously lost toy. He was still such a little kid, it was so cute. Next time you leave him behind, I might not be able to collect him, he cautioned. It was sheer luck that Ayame-san put him aside for you when you left him at Ichiraku's. You need to be more careful, okay? Naruto nodded obediently, tucking Oink firmly against his belly and digging back into his food. Kakashi watched him, not eating much himself, but rather just toying with the food on his plate. How to broach the topic he sorely needed to discuss with the boy. After a long while tossing different approaches back and forth in his mind, he sighed and put his cup down on the table with a clink. Naruto, he said carefully, an internal twitch going off as Naruto looked up, cheeks bulging with the amount of food he'd stuffed into his mouth, his other hand smashing a handful of cold noodles repeatedly into Oink's face. Damn, and he just washed the toy too. Putting the thought aside, Kakashi leant forwards and said, Nara pup, even though I haven't been working since you were born, you do know that it's Daddy's job to be a ninja, right? Naruto nodded. Uh-huh, he agreed. My daddy's the best ninja ever. 'Cause you're all like super ninja power, and then the bad guys are like and you're like grr, and the baddies are like meep, and then it's like bang, smack, kaboom, and it's totally awesome. Kakashi didn't even try to follow the child's speech, choosing instead to take it as a simple acknowledgement of his father's occupation, and continued. Because of everything that happened around the time you were born, with your mama and everything, Hokage-sama gave me an extended leave of absence, he said, noticing the way Naruto stilled when his fictional mother was mentioned. But now, Sarutobi-sama has requested that I go back to work. I'm going to start taking on missions again. Naruto was staring at him, the expression on his face a mixture between confusion and apprehension. But does that mean you won't be here no more? He asked carefully. Any more, Kakashi corrected automatically. And no. I'll still be here, just not as much. Sometimes I might have to leave you overnight or for a few days. But mostly I should be home every night for dinner, and I'll leave one of the dogs with you if I'll be gone for any longer. But you're not going to be here alone, Naru. Naruto cocked his head, frowning. I'm not. Nope. Kakashi leant back and ran a hand through his hair. You have been enrolled in first form at the academy. Starting Monday next week, you're going to be going to school. There was a long pause, Naruto's eyes growing steadily wider and wider. Kakashi braced himself for the inevitable ear-shattering squeal. Cool. Ah, there it was. Later that day, Naruto was pouting, arms crossed and cheeks puffed out as Kakashi sat cross-legged on the living room floor, calmly blunting his kunai. About 2 months ago, he deemed Naruto ready for the sharp blades, though he still had yet to teach him how to actually sharpen them. However, Monday was his first day at the academy, and Kakashi wasn't dumb enough to think Naruto would consent to leaving his ninja weapons behind, and there was no way he was going to let a 5-year-old take sharp knives to school. But why can't I take sharp kunai to the academy? Naruto whined, stamping his foot. Kakashi set aside a newly blunted kunai, resting it on the pile, and lifted one with sharp edges that glinted in the light. Because you'll be around lots and lots of idiots, he said flatly. Naruto blinked. Ugh. And he was happy again. Kakashi shook his head. Mental note, remember that excuse. Naruto bit his lip and looked around shyly. He was seated at his new desk while all around him kids his own age were chattering, squealing, bouncing up and down and racing around the room, overly excited by the prospect of their very first day of school. Naruto knew a couple of them by sight from the park, but hadn't spent much time playing with any of them. Because he often chose to hang out with Kiba, and Kiba flatly refused to tolerate anyone younger than himself other than Naruto, the Hitaki didn't interact much with those his own age. Soon, the teacher, Nyoko-sensei, called them to order, and soon she managed to settle every child behind the desk with their name written it on a white sticker. Okay, she said, smiling around at the room of children. Welcome to your first day at the academy. Now I'm sure to some of you, this is a little scary and new, but don't worry. Soon you'll be pros at our way of doing things. Now you are all here to learn how to be ninja. Nyoko-sensei pressed a button on a projector situated at the front of the classroom, and a large map lit up the blackboard. Naruto sat up straighter. He recognized the map. It was one of the 5 great shinobi nations, as well as the smaller ones dotted between them. I'm sure you're all aware it is a ninja's duty to protect its village. In our case, you will all grow to protect Konoha, but it is much more than that. There are hidden villages dotted all over our continent, each with ninja to protect the country they are situated in. Ninja also support the village by taking on missions that they are then paid for. There are 4 ranks of missions. Naruto found his mind wandering away from the lecture. He already knew all this stuff, but Daddy had told him that kids coming from civilian families wouldn't, so he didn't complain, instead watching the flight path of 2 birds out the window. They danced together, drawing invisible lines in the air that fascinated him. They seemed to be building a nest in the tree just outside the fence marking the edge of the playground. Maybe they were going to have eggs, and then the eggs would hatch out into baby birds that Naruto could climb the tree to see. The young blonde's thoughts drifted to his own family, and he wondered what his father was doing right now. He missed his daddy desperately right now, but refused to be a baby and say anything. A shinobi walked by on the road, passing the tree the birds were flitting in and out of. Naruto sat up a bit straighter, trying to see who it was. It looked like maybe Raito-san, but from behind it was hard to tell. Hataki Naruto-chan. Pay attention, okay? Do you know the answer? Naruto jumped. Myoko-sensei was looking at him expectantly, and the blonde flushed red. She obviously knew he hadn't heard the question at all, too absorbed in the outside world to listen. Biting his lip, he scanned the front of the room for clues. The map was still projected up the front, and several notes had been scratched up beside it, written hastily as if Myoko-sensei didn't expect anyone to actually read them. He took a stab in the dark, eyes settling on the kanji 4 rules, and said, "Shinobi are governed by a set of guidelines called the Shinobi Laws or Shinobi Rules, 163 in total, that tell them how to live, fight and serve. And even though all of them are important, the first 25 are the most important." Myoko-sensei looked shocked. "Yes, that's right, Naruto-chan," she said eventually. "How did you know that?" Naruto shrugged. "My daddy taught me," he said simply, uncomfortable. Did she want him to list the rules as well? He hoped not, because he could never remember them past number 42. Why was she staring at him like that? That's a little advanced for right now, though it was a very good summary," the teacher praised, still staring at him like he'd grown a second head. "Do you think you could answer my question, though? Do you know the 4 different ranks our missions are given?" Naruto grinned. "Oh, is that what you wanted?" he asked. "I wasn't listening, so I just guessed." Then he frowned, suddenly confused. "But sensei, there are more than 4 ranks. There's D, C, B, A, S, SS, and SSS, but only the A and BU and the bestest best ninja get the SES. Oh, and there's unranked, which are way too dangerous to be put into a class. They're like the missions for people like the Hokage and my daddy. Daddy says I'm an unranked mission all on myself, but he's being silly." The teacher's mouth was slack, hanging slightly open, and she appeared frozen, but Naruto had run out of stuff to talk about concerning mission ranking, so he just stayed quiet. As seconds stretched, and the other kids began to fidget and whisper, Naruto squirmed uncomfortably, wondering if his sensei wanted him to explain what level of ninja took each ranked level of mission, but lost his nerve and meekly decided to just stay silent until asked. After another long moment, the teacher tore her eyes away and nodded, saying, "Well, for now we're only going to focus on ranks A, B, C, and D." As she continued her lecture, Naruto found himself losing interest again. Myoko-sensei didn't call on him again. It was a relief when it was time for Myoko-sensei to herd her students outside for some exercise. Keeping the first-form children still and quiet and listening as they learned theory was nigh on impossible, and she often wondered if they wouldn't get more done mimicking the civilian school and teaching through games and play. But woe betide the Chunin who suggested as much to the school board of education, much less the council. This year, the children would be brought up to scratch in fitness, their small bodies punished until they reached the staring point, the place where they were physically capable to begin learning shinobi arts. Second form and above was where they'd learn all those, so Myoko-sensei's job in this area was a relatively simple one. She put her hands on her hips and smiled at the waist-high children all about her. "Okay," she said brightly, "now you are going to run some laps around the courtyard here, okay? See the tracks around the edge of the yard there? I want you to run around it 5 times. She held up 5 careful fingers for everyone to see. "Ready? Go! Fast as you can." Naruto agreeably took off, jogging in the middle of his class. This courtyard was about as big as his backyard at home, so 5 laps wouldn't be too hard. He didn't understand, however, why everyone else was going so slowly. Daddy had strapped on his weights this morning, but even with the added burden, he wanted to go faster than his classmates. Were those girls panting? It had only been half a lap. Nyoko-sensei sighed as she watched the young Hataki break rank and continue running. She would be willing to bet every drop of coffee in the academy staff room that his father had been training him, and hummed in disapproval. I don't like that. He would have been a toddler when his father started him. Pressuring a little kid like that can't be good. The little blonde, who actually wasn't so little compared to the others, he stood a head above the most of them, which Nyoko-sensei supposed was telling of good, strong genes, passed his class again, now a full lap ahead of them. It really shouldn't surprise her that the kid was so advanced. When his father was his age, he'd already made genin, if rumors were to be believed. And who hadn't heard the rumors surrounding the Hataki family? Whispers of genius and prodigial talent followed them everywhere. There were a few darker rumors, but Nyoko-sensei was too young to have heard much about the Hataki generation before Hataki Kakashi-san. Naruto stopped in front of her. He was panting a little, but didn't look overly winded. The others had yet to complete their third lap. Many had stopped running and were walking instead. Done, sensei, the blonde chirped. Nyoko-sensei knelt, putting herself on the 5-year-old's level. Naruto-chan, am I right when I say you've done this before? She asked gently. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Aha, he said. Daddy and I go runnin' all th time. Well, I run, Daddy jogs. His legs re long, and it's not fair. But he says I'll grow, Naruto added hopefully. Nyoko-sensei frowned. And from what you said earlier, I'd assume you have also been taught about the shinobi rules and our mission system. Again, Naruto nodded. And you've learned other things as well? Daddy teaches me, the blonde said solemnly. Then he pulled a face. I has to do 3 hours a day of bookwork before I can do anything fun, he complained. Nyoko-sensei sighed as Naruto pouted, lost in his lamentation of the unfairness of his life. Why don't you do another few laps while the others finish off? The Hataki nodded and obediently took off. His teacher watched him go, biting her lip musingly. It was break time. Naruto was standing in the playground, a frown in place. He made no move to join his age mates in their play, and instead scanned the teeming children around him until Kiba! The Inuzuka spun around, a grin splitting his face as Naruto sprinted up to him. Well, hello, midget. Naruto pouted. Not, he said. He beamed proudly. Bigger than all my class. He had been very pleased to notice as much. Kiba patted him sharply on the head. Still smaller than me, midget. You're finally in school, huh? Heh. 'Bout time. But then, someone as little as you would take time to catch us big kids up. Naruto's smile disappeared faster than a fox down a hole or the dog that chased it there. I'm not little, he shouted. Kiba scoffed. I'm 7, you're 5. You are too little. Naruto pouted again, then allowed his grin back onto his face, traditional argument complete. The wild brunette ran a hand through his tangled hair. So, how are you liking school so far? He asked. Naruto stuck out his tongue. Bleh. It's boring, he whined. Kiba laughed. Well, duh. If it makes you feel any better, there's a swing over there. He laughed harder as Naruto's entire body lit up at the news and the 5-year-old turned to race to the favorite play device. Nyoko-sensei watched contemplatively from the window as Naruto jumped over Kiba's leg when the Inuzuka tried to trip him and maneuvered the older boy until he could punch him solidly in the chest, and sighed. Then she turned away to go back inside and search out a certain set of paperwork. 3 days after Naruto's first day at the academy, as he had begun to fondly think of it, Kakashi settled in his armchair, pulling a wad of letters towards him. Naruto was finally down for the night, after helping him with the dinner dishes, and his father had chosen this time to go through his mail. He mused mentally, flicking through the letters. Bill, letter from old friend, wasn't he dead? Oh, well, Bill, notice, memo, summons, oh for the love the gods. Kakashi paused to set fire to yet another pornographic magazine. Jiraiya the legendary bastard kept subscribing to them in Kakashi's name, having them mailed to the Hataki household. So, where was I? Right, Bill, notice, Ash's, letter from the academy, what could Naruto have done already? Okay, this one I'll read. Curiously, he opened the letter, slitting the envelope and pulling out the carefully printed note, I scanning it quickly. It was a letter from Naruto's teacher, a highly detailed and logical explanation as to why his son should be given careful consideration. He was highly advanced for his age, and so was bored and idle in the lowest form, and although it was good for children to be with others their own age, Naruto really was better off in a higher grade. And how Nyoko-sensei had filled out the forms required to move the child up a grade, though they still needed Kakashi's signature, and that she encouraged him to think about it and come speak to her before he made his decision. Kakashi set the letter down and flicked through the forms, before chuckling and reaching for a pen. Quickly, he scribbled his name on the dotted line waiting for his signature, slipping the forms back into the envelope. As an afterthought, he added a note, "Knock yourself out, Naruto will love being bigger." As he resealed the packet and set it aside, he shook his head. "I do hope this doesn't go to the kid's head." Akemi-sensei flicked black hair out of his eyes and looked around at his class +1. Today, Monday week 2, he had a new student. Hatake Naruto was sitting in the third row, blonde hair just visible over the girl in front of him, looking completely unremarkable, and just a fraction smaller than the others in the room. He could have been any random kid in this class. Though, Akemi-sensei had to admit, even if the coloring was wrong, Naruto had definitely inherited his gravity-defying, never-been-brushed hair from his father. Also, allegedly, ability, little Hatake Chibi had already been bumped up a grade. Naruto himself was frowning at his teacher. 1 week had been all it took to thoroughly disenchant him about school. It was boring and mind-numbing, not to mention extremely degrading. He'd been told that this week he'd be with a more advanced class, but didn't hold much hope that it would challenge him at all, judging from the katakana letters on the blackboard. He wasn't even sure these so-called shonen were really teachers. They certainly didn't act like Daddy, and everyone knew Daddy was the bestest ninja in the whole universe. So he settled into a perfect disgusted little boy pose, arms crossed, "Are you kidding?" or just dumb expression firmly and unconsciously in place. "All right, kids," Akemi-sensei said, lifting a piece of chalk. "Today we're learning about chakra." Kakashi pushed the door open and stepped inside the classroom, sighing heavily when he saw Naruto seated in a low wooden desk he assumed had been assigned to the child, swinging his legs moodily as he glowered at the floor. The Chunin instructor, Yuta Akemi, if Kakashi remembered correctly, was looking equally surly, and was marking a few papers rather more violently than absolutely necessary. "Daddy?" Of course, Naruto was the first one to notice him. Before either adult could speak, the 5-year-old pointed a damning finger at his teacher and said hotly, "He wouldn't let me leave. I don't think he's even a real ninja." "Hatake-san," Akemi-sensei ground out, "your son has been detained, and I have summoned you to speak about a very serious matter. Earlier today, your son threw a live kunai at me in the middle of my lecture. Children in my class are not to have live kunai. They have only just begun using the wooden mock-ups, and this blatant disrespect is concerning." Kakashi winced at the condemning tone. Gee, he stalled, looking at where Naruto was sulking, unrepentant, arms crossed and cheeks puffed out, mere seconds away from a full-scale tantrum. On the board off to the left of the front of the room, Kakashi spotted Naruto's childish katakana writing, repeating the line, "I will not endanger myself or my classmates by throwing kunai, and I will not disrespect my teacher by trying to physically harm him out of turn a fair few times." The Hatake winced at the length of the sentence, and wondered how many times Naruto had been made to write it out. No wonder he looked so mad. Akemi-sensei was looking impatient, so it was probably time to stop thinking and start talking. "Naruto," he sighed, "why did you throw a kunai at your teacher? You know better than to attack comrades." The blonde drew himself up indignantly, meeting his father's gaze defiantly as he spat, "He's not a real ninja. He don't know what chakra is. He's a poster." Kakashi blinked. Of all the things he could have expected, that wasn't one of them. "An imposter?" he repeated carefully, glancing with mild suspicion at the other man. Children were often much more perceptive than adults, and Naruto never lied, so everything he said had weight. He honestly believed this man to be an imposter, and that was enough to put his father on guard. Naruto nodded, a stubborn pout on his face as he crossed his arms and lifted his chin. Aha! You shall beat him up, Daddy. He's not a real ninja. Not like you. Akemi-sensei was spluttering indignantly, and Kakashi began to have an inkling of what the problem was. Why do you think he's not a ninja, Naruto? He asked. Naruto scowled. He don't know chakra. He sai chakra's energy at you need to live and fight and stuff, but he's wrong. Chakra is an equal measure spiritual and physical energy that sustains us and is closely interwoven with our internal network, circulating our system like blood, which may be used to fuel different techniques and jutsu to aid in the fighting of an enemy. The child's tone turned sophisticated as he quoted his lesson book perfectly from memory with none of his usual bad grammar and pronunciation. Kakashi sighed again and ran his hand through his messy silver hair, looking at a shocked Chunin. Well, I think it's clear what's happened here. Naruto, I'll have you know that Akemi-sensei is a real Chunin and is not, in fact, an imposter. He is simply simplifying, so that the others in your class may follow, because they have not been taught what you have just yet. Remember? I told you that might happen. Akemi-sensei, no harm, no foul? Kakashi looked hopefully at the teacher, who crossed his arms and huffed. He still shouldn't be keeping live kunai with him, he argued. Kakashi shook his head. I'm sorry, sensei, but I will not take them from him. I promised him that he could have weapons if he came here alone, without me or one of my dogs to protect him. I'm sure you heard about the incident last year, when he was nearly abducted? Well, ever since then, he's felt vulnerable, without me near. If kunai keep his nightmares away and let him play with his friends without fear, I have no objection with letting him hold on to them. You will find he has only 5 kunai and 5 shuriken on him, and they are all blunted, and he will never throw them at anyone except one whom he perceives as a very real threat. Akemi-sensei still looked unhappy. He is perfectly safe here, he argued. He is watched especially carefully, exactly because of that occurrence last year. No harm will come to him. He doesn't need to be armed. Kakashi chuckled. Akemi-sensei, he said, raising his eyebrows, I know that. The problem is he doesn't. The kid knows there are people who would seek to harm him out there, and feels vulnerable, rightly so, I must add. Don't take his perceived insurance away from him. For a long moment, Akemi-sensei stared at him, before he sighed heavily and stood, moving to the door. Wait here, he said tiredly, I'll go get the forms to move him up a grade. Naruto cheered loudly. Yay! Kiba's class. Awesome! Kakashi resisted the urge to bang his head on the table. Now the little bugger would think he'd be rewarded for throwing knives at teachers. Bloody hell. Parenting was hard work. Special chapter. Naruto's birthday. And some plot because I couldn't keep it out. Kakashi worked to unclench his fist and allow the scroll he'd caught there to fall into the appropriate place in his filing cabinet. He was angry, furious, vibrating. He had just come home from the fourth, and final, council meeting concerning the Kumo situation. In the 2.5 months since the Kumo squad had taken his son, Kakashi had been howling for vengeance. Preferably in the form of lots of screaming, blood and mayhem. The council, including the Hokage, was less convinced. They were maddeningly reluctant to declare war, despite the blatant disregard Kumo had shown to date for the peace contract standing between the two nations. Kakashi had been, perhaps foolishly, surprised to find the Hyuga clan head, Hayashi, openly and firmly on his side. Surprised because the stuffy Hyuga clan had never quite gotten over that whole "oh would you look at that Hatake Tsukumo started a war" fiasco. Foolish because the man had almost lost his own daughter 4 years previously in another botched attempt by Kumo to try and abduct a child of a famous clan. The whole affair had been kept remarkably quiet, probably because Hayashi's twin brother had been executed as a result, to appease the Kumo government, but Sarutobi had felt it pertinent to inform Kakashi, just in case any of the Hyuga sought revenge against Naruto who had Kumo blood. Strife, politics made him sick to his stomach. The Hatake was grimly pleased to find a kindred spirit in Hayashi. These attacks will continue, the Hyuga had argued. Unless we do something, Kumo will just grow bolder. We have no proof, insisted Koharu, the old coot, as she shot a dirty look at Kakashi. Hatake-san has seen to that. Which was how he had ended up with no war and an official reprimand in his hand for unnecessary force. With a heavy sigh, Kakashi pushed his filing cabinet closed and willed his anger away. Carefully closing the study window he'd come in by, he trotted down the stairs with a cheery, "I'm home." "Daddy?" Something orange, blue, green, yellow, purple, and red attached itself to Kakashi's leg. "Daddy? You're back. We were face painting." "I'm a dog." Kakashi looked down at the jumble of colors haphazardly applied to Naruto's face. Truth be told, he looked less like a dog and more like a paint palette had barfed on him. He pulled up a painful grin. "How cool. Who's the artist? Did you do it yourself?" "Uh-huh," the 4-year-old said brightly. This time, Kakashi's smile was easier. "Figures," he chuckled. "Oh, there you are, kid," said a grown-up voice, Sun, who had agreed to babysit today. "Inuzuka-san," Kakashi said, bowing just slightly. "Thank you so much for watching my son. I'm sorry I was longer than I expected." Sun waved a hand. "Oh, don't worry about that," she said dismissively. "I know what the council's like. Anyway, it's good for the kids to play a bit. Your yard may be a bit painted, but your house missed the worst of it." Kakashi grimaced at the thought of what awaited him outside. "And oink?" "May have been face painted," Sun grinned. "It'll come off in the bath." Kakashi groaned. He made no move into the kitchen where he could hear Sun's 2 children arguing. Naruto detached himself from his father's leg to go join in. Kakashi would have reluctantly followed, but the woman standing before him caught his arm, halting his progress. "While I have you, kid," she said over casually, eyes glinting, "I was wondering what you had planned for Sunday." Kakashi was lost, which didn't happen all that often to the certified genius. "Sunday?" he repeated dubiously, wondering if he'd missed a memo somewhere along the way. Everything male inside him started to whimper as Sun swelled up with maternal anger. Her hand shot out and whapped him around the ears. "Oh. What's today, Hatake?" She had transitioned from kid to Hatake. Time to answer. "Friday, April 1st, the man replied. Sun waited, but as Kakashi just stared blankly at her, she sighed and said, "And Sunday will be April 3rd? Still no bells were going off. That date was just as unimportant as the last one. Sun hit him again, harder. "Your son was born on the 3rd of April, idiot. He'll be 5 this weekend." Realization flooded Kakashi, and he instantly felt bad. Which probably had to do more with the way Sun was glaring and less with forgetting his son's fake birthday. "Oh." Not the response Sun wanted, apparently, as she hit him again. "Idiot." "Ow." Raising an arm to fend off more blows, Kakashi ducked his head and cried, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" That gave the woman pause. "Oh," she said, realizing who exactly she was scolding. Kakashi's own birthday parties had been pretty thin on the ground as a kid, and even now, because some things died hard. Under the circumstances, Sun thought it best to speak slowly and clearly. And simply. "You throw him a party," she enunciated. "You make a fuss. You give him gifts. You forget your OCD aversion to unhealthy food for a morning. Get it, genius?" Kakashi grimaced. Parties, gifts, and fusses had never been his forte. Can't I just pat him on the head and tell him he's 5 now over breakfast? It was what he'd done last year, around April 14th, because he'd forgotten last year too. He ducked another sweat. "No. Arg, kid, you're useless. Okay, new plan. You, the brat, at my house, 10 o'clock Sunday morning. On time." Evil glare. Kakashi considered protesting that he wasn't late that often, and had she ever tried getting Naruto fed, clean and dressed by a deadline before, but his ears were still ringing with the force of the last blow she'd landed, and he decided that silence was the better course of valor. "Yes, Inuzuka-san." "And you start telling your brat that he'll be 5 soon, why here?" "Yes, Inuzuka-san." "And wash oink. That toy's disgusting, paint and jam all over him." "Yes, Inuzuka-san." Sun gave him a toothy grin. "Brats. Kiba, Hana! She hollered. Let's go! A little boy with a face just as colorful as Naruto's trotted out of the kitchen, flashing Kakashi a cheeky grin. An older girl, just barely still preteen, followed him with streaks of paint in her hair, no doubt put there by little male hands. Goodbye, Hataki-san, she said politely as she passed, following her family out the door. There was a silence when they'd left, leaving Kakashi to raise a hand to rub his aching head. Ma, what just happened? A squeal from the kitchen, followed by an ominous crunching noise, and made Kakashi jerk and stumble towards the room his son was in, well aware that it was already far too late to stop or help the damage. 2 days later, Kakashi held Naruto's hand firmly and hurried along the road towards the Inuzuka compound at 9:49 in the morning, well aware that it would take at least 15 minutes to get there. So this is how Obito felt all the time, he thought absently, cringing at the thought of what some would do to him. It's my birthday, Naruto announced to anyone passing by. It's my birthday. It's my birthday. Daddy, Daddy, it's my birthday. I know, Naruto, Kakashi replied. How old are you? There was a pause as Naruto thought about it, counting on his free hand as he was tugged at high speeds through the streets. 5, the boy eventually decided. That's right, Kakashi smiled, closing his eye for the briefest moment to do so. And we're going to visit Kiba-kun. Kiba! On my birthday! Naruto revisited the point. It's my birthday, Daddy! They reached the Inuzuka compound 2.5 minutes late, but thankfully Tsum was not the timekeeper Kakashi had been in his youth, and she just gave him an approving nod and continued hanging the streamers she was attempting to fix to a tall light fixture. The compound's main courtyard was a grassy place that was ringed with buildings, each of which had a tiled patio making a wide border for the scraggly lawn. It was nowhere near as refined as the Uchiha compound or as elegant as the Hyuga compound, and had the air of chaos in it. Dogs were scattered around, the evidence of their presence documented in many holes dug into the ground. Kakashi liked the place immediately. Today it was strung with streamers and ribbons and bunches of balloons. A long table was set up on one section of the tiled area, already laden with food. Hana, Tsum's daughter, was calmly pouring crisps into a bowl, handing 1 or 2 off to the straining hands of her younger brother. Other bowls held sweets and cakes of all description. Kakashi felt slightly bad that Tsum had done all this and he hadn't helped at all, but the feeling was almost completely drowned out by relief at the same. He let Naruto's hand go, and the blonde took off, announcing to Kiba and Hana and anyone else who would listen that it was his birthday, and he was 5 and it was his birthday, and he had no lessons today, and it was his birthday, and did they want to play, and it was his birthday. Good job, kid, Tsum said approvingly. You got him worked up, well done. Now. She clapped her hands together. I invited a bunch o' people, they'll be tinnin' up around 10:30. Then we'll have cake, and the kids can go wild. Play games and stuff, I have a few ideas, but they'll make their own fun. There's not many kids your brat's age, by the way, but I did my best. Thank you, Inuzuka-san, for doing all of this, Kakashi said softly. I would never be able to do it, and it means a lot to Naruto. Tsum grinned at him. Don't you worry, kid. We'll train you up right. You'll learn how to throw a right shindig. Good thing too, because kids to have a lot of birthdays. And if you have any more, you're gonna have to throw 2 or more a year. Kakashi grimaced. He seriously doubted he'd be having any more children. People soon began to arrive, as promised. It seemed that, in the absence of children Naruto's supposed age, Tsum had turned to her own peers with children, friends of Kiba. More or less the same people who had come to that horrifying baby shower several years ago, the Hataki realized with a wince. Chusa, Inoichi and Shikaku arrived first in a group, without spouses and with children in tow. Kakashi was amused to see that the kids looked like literal clones of their fathers, and more so when he noticed Yamanaka-san's child was, in fact, a pretty little girl. He greeted them politely, receiving a variety of adult-to-kid responses despite the fact that he was almost 22. Chusa departed to hover over the food table. Shikaku pulled his son out of an outdoor lounge and shoved him in the direction of the other kids before taking it himself and leaning back, gazing up at the sky. Inoichi was being dragged around by the hand, his busy little daughter taking him from place to place and chattering. Sarutobi appeared next, smiling faintly at Kakashi and then Naruto and pushing his grandson into the group ahead of him. "I can't stay, I'm afraid," he said apologetically, laying a brightly wrapped present on the table next to the food. "I just thought I'd drop off Konohamaru. He's 3. His mother will come to pick him up." Kakashi called Naruto over to introduce the two, and Naruto was delighted to meet someone who was younger and smaller than him. He quickly ran to fetch Kiba, and dragged the bigger boy back to point at Konohamaru and declare, "See? I'm not little. He's little." Kiba laughed at him. Next to arrive was another friend of Tsume's and his offspring, though Naruto had at least met this one. Aburame Shibi slipped into the courtyard silently, nodded once at Tsume, completely bypassed Kakashi and settled into a corner. His son Shino wandered aimlessly for a while before he was noticed and absorbed into the group. Quite a crowd was gathering. Kakashi did a quick head count and came away with 8 children. He winced inwardly, not coping well with the social setting. "Is anyone else coming?" he asked Tsume, almost unaware of how strained his voice was. The wild woman shrugged. "Dunno," she said. "Don't think so. I invited everyone I could think of, but I don't reckon the Uchiha will come. They don't like you too much, and they're not fond of me either, so," she shrugged carelessly. Kakashi felt a jolt to realize that she had invited Obito's relatives, with whom he was not on good terms. "Hatake Kakashi is a thief and a liar, and we demand that he be blinded," and breathed a sigh of relief when he discovered they would not be coming. Still, there was a surprise on the way, for he had barely sighed when another guest arrived, 1 adult and 3 smaller figures, all dressed in pressed cream muslin. Hyuga Hayashi walked calmly into their midst, holding his 2-year-old daughter in his arms and leading his 6 or 7-year-old girl by the hand. A boy not much older followed a few paces behind, eyes down, and Kakashi realized that this must be Hayashi's nephew. "Hyuga-san," he said. Hayashi met his eye for a long moment before he released his elder child's hand and placed the younger on the ground. "I apologize for our slight lateness," he said. "It was 40 past 10. Have you met my children? This is my daughter, Hinata, and her sister, Hanabi." He indicated each child in turn, before drawing the boy closer with a gesture. "My brother's son, Niji," he added. "Wow," Tsume commented. "I didn't think you were comin', Hyuga." Hayashi raised an elegant eyebrow at her. "You invited us, did you not?" "Well, yeah, but I didn't think you'd actually come," the Inuzuka argued. "And never have before." "I have never been invited to the birthday celebration of the son of Hatake Kakashi before, either," Hayashi replied dourly with the slightest of smirks. He'd clearly been invited to Kiba's and maybe even Hana's birthdays before, and so his statement was an insult. Tsume, far from offended, just snorted. "Away with ya," she scoffed. "Come on, eat some junk food like a normal person. Send your kids into the fray." With a word, Hayashi did just that, sending his children to wish Naruto a happy birthday and make the lad's acquaintance. Kakashi kept Hayashi's eyes for a long moment. "I didn't expect you," he finally admitted, and it was true. He had no idea of the guest list, but even if he had, he'd never have expected Hayashi to show up. The Hyuga gave a sort of hybrid shrug via the tilting of his head to one side. "Fate deals us many twists and turns that we do not expect," he replied simply. "Though, I do have a favor to ask." Kakashi was instantly on guard. "Yes?" he said cautiously. Hayashi almost smiled blithely at him. "As it was decided that the men you killed nearly 3 months ago, those that attempted to abduct your child, were unidentifiable, they have become your property, your problem." Kakashi nodded. That was the law, but he hadn't been thinking of claiming his right to them. "Do you have any need of them?" "None," Kakashi said tightly, suspecting a trap, unable to see it. Hayashi looked pleased. "In that case, I wish to ask you if I might trouble you to gift them to me." Kakashi blinked. "You want the mangled corpse's tea and I has in their freezer?" he said dumbly. "You do know there's not much left of them, right? Are their heads more or less intact?" the Hyuga inquired. "Their heads? Yes," Kakashi said slowly. It was a sad commentary on his life that having this conversation to a background melody of laughing children was completely normal. Mostly. Then they will serve my purpose. Kakashi briefly considered asking, but decided against it. He also briefly considered the wisdom of blindly trusting a Hyuga, but decided to go with his gut instinct. You can have them. They're all yours, he said. He rather liked the look in Hayashi's eyes as the man thanked him, and wondered again what he was planning. Some interrupted before he could decide whether or not to ask, dragging them both away to the food table. The adults gathered in the shade to watch the children play, and play they did, drawing together and starting a game of ninja, always a favorite, with a very complex plot, involving zombie mutant gorilla samurai and an abducted princess, a role Ino graciously assumed. Hinata got designated the role of protective fairy, and little Hanabi was incredibly put out when she was told she couldn't be a ninja because she was too little and a girl, and instead had to be a witch or another stolen princess. There was a wrestle over the dispute, and when she managed to push Kiba to the ground, it was agreed that she could be a warrior sorceress, which, Hana explained as she pulled the Hyuga off her brother, was like a kunoichi with magical powers, and was much cooler than a plain old shinobi. Hana herself grudgingly agreed to be the bad guy, though Kakashi never gleaned if she was a monster, a sorceress, or an army personified. Perhaps all three. She was aided by her 3 puppies, who all bounced and growled threats in hilarious squeaky voices. The boys banded together and an epic battle took place, involving many heroic acts and much confusion, until some announced it was time for cake. The princess was hastily rescued, and the children crowded around a store-bought birthday cake, leaving many sneaky finger smudges. They sang happy birthday to Naruto, who looked around as if he thought they were insane when they began. He listened with fascination until the song ended, then looked up at his father and said, "Sien, we have cake now, Daddy?" "Yes, Naruto," Kakashi replied seriously, reaching for a knife after a nod from Sim. "Here. Mind your fingers. This knife is sharp, I don't want to cut you." He efficiently cut up the cake, giving Naruto his pick of the resulting slices. With the birthday boy in possession of his piece, the other adults quickly moved forward, and between them all, the other kids got their cake remarkably quickly. Just as they were eating it, Kakashi giving many excuses not to have any himself, none of which were believed, Wimp, Sim had declared, when the last partygoer arrived. "Yosh. I'm sorry I am late. It is most unyouthful. Regrettably, I was unable to complete my morning mission in time to arrive at the celebration of my noble rival Kakashi's child. But we shall persevere. Let us celebrate the youthful Naruto's life." Kakashi was frozen in horror, the spandex-clad man who had just arrived striking a good guy pose before him. Almost frantically, he looked around for an escape route. All he found was Sim's amused expression. "Oh, I forgot to mention," she said lightly. "Of course I invited Gaisen to your son's birthday party, Kakashi. You and he are such close friends." Kakashi narrowed his eye at her, seriously considering bodily harm. Meanwhile, Naruto had gotten over his own surprise at Guy's arrival. "Froggy-san," Naruto announced, his voice carrying splendidly. Every adult in the courtyard stilled. Kakashi groaned aloud. "The longer I have this kid, the more ritual suicide appeals to me," he thought glumly, raising a hand to his face. "Guy, I am so sorry," he said. Then, turning to Naruto, "Bad Naru. You call him Guy-san." "Froggy-san," Naruto insisted stubbornly. Kakashi winced. Guy was in tears. "Champion of youth. You have remembered me, and more than that, you have granted me my own special name, as among friends. Ah! Son of my rival Kakashi, I am honored by your youthful endearment for me, and shall wear the name proudly." And he enveloped the small blonde in a hug. Naruto, quite unperturbed, just patted Guy's shiny black head and said solemnly, "Good Froggy-san." Kakashi idly wondered if he should tell Guy the truth, that this was no nickname. Naruto actually believed him to be some kind of mutant giant frog, but decided that Guy would be happier not knowing. A memory drifted through his mind, a toddler holding an orange plush frog high in preparation to hurl it down the stairs. "S.A. Froggy, Daddy? Froggy's Don has names. Uiri dumb." Kakashi had to excuse himself, or be seen in public laughing himself sick. It took a long time for the kids to wear themselves out, especially as they kept refueling on the processed sugar that some had put out. Kakashi had to physically restrain himself from snatching the sweets out of Naruto's sticky little hands, and instead just braced himself as the blonde began to literally bounce off the walls. There was much squealing, shrieking, running, bouncing, laughter and giggling, and the children all had a fine time. The adults stood around, chatting, and Kakashi steadfastly bore it for his son's sake. They opened presents, and everyone had brought one for the birthday boy. Most of them were useless, a toy samurai? Honestly, or messy, those crayons were going straight on the walls. Kakashi just knew it, or just plain, weird, why had Guy given him a plastic cactus that danced when put in sunlight? Kakashi never got the chance to ask, because Naruto's serious thank you, Froggy-san had sent the man into hysterical tears of joy that no one wanted to interrupt. Only Hayashi had procured a proper gift. Ami Hinata was given the task of handing it over, and she smiled at the littler boy and patted his golden head when he thanked her sunnily. Inside were a tiny set of weight clothes, specially designed for young children, a favorite tool of shinobi parents training their children for the same. Naruto shouted his delight, and Kakashi bent over him to pluck one of the shin weights out of the box, examining it, before looking up at Hayashi. "I have noticed you and the boy about the village," the Hyuga said, by way of explanation. "You seem to be teaching him, but I have yet to see him wear any weights. They may be a little large, but he needn't start wearing them right away." "Thank you," Kakashi said sincerely, placing the weights back in the box. He nudged Naruto. "Thank Niji-kun, Hinata-chan and Hanabi-chan for your present, Narapup." The three Hyuga children who had given Naruto the weights were treated to enthusiastic hugs of thanks. Eventually, the sugar high burned out, and all at once, every child was yawning. They doggedly continued their play for a while, the lure of duck duck goose just too strong to give up the game for something as mundane as sleepiness. But the energy petered out of the kids with startling suddenness. Shikamaru was labeled Goose, but didn't even bother to get up to chase Konohamaru, instead making a vague motion in the Sarutobi's direction before sighing and collapsing backwards, closing his eyes. The boy said. As if that was the cue, all the other children sitting in the circle tumbled over on the grass, falling asleep there in the sun in mere moments. Photographs were taken, and quiet goodbyes were said before parents silently lifted their sleeping treasures and bore them away. "You see, kid," some whispered hoarsely to Kakashi when they were the only ones left, gathering kiba from the grass while Kakashi eased Naruto into his arms, "that is what you do on a birthday." "Reikage-sama?" The yandere Reikage glanced up at the Chunin standing before him. "Yes, Aki-san?" "There's mail here, just delivered by a flock of falcons." "For boxes, sir, addressed? Well, there are no wards or traps on them, and our scans revealed nothing dangerous inside, so should I bring them in?" The Reikage frowned at the babbling, but nodded. "Do it," he ordered roughly. The Chunin disappeared, returning a moment later with 4 plain cardboard boxes balanced in his arms, the kind that were used for ordinary post all over the continent. The boxes were placed before him on his desk, and the Reikage lifted the first one, examining it. It was addressed to Hatake Kakashi, in Konoha. The sender, he was surprised to see, was himself. This was the same on all 4 parcels, he soon noted. He had sent no package to the Konohan Hatake filth who had stolen a Kumo baby, so naturally the return of such puzzled him. "Do we have any record of this being sent?" he asked the Chunin. The shinobi fell over himself to shake his head. "No, sir. Nothing. That's why I thought you'd want to see them, sir." The Reikage looked for other writing on the boxes. Each one had 2 phrases bannered across them in red ink: "Return to sender" and "damaged goods." Damaged goods? Ever the cautious man, the yandere ran a few tests of his own, coming away with nothing but a strong sense of white chakra, very similar to that which he had personally encountered not in Hatake Kakashi, but in the man's father when once they'd crossed blades. Whatever goods were damaged, Hatake had damaged them himself. But there were no traps or danger that he could find, so he reached for a blade and slit the seal, opening the first box. He quickly shut it again and closed his eyes. For a long moment he didn't move, before he opened his eyes and turned to the Chunin. Go find the next of kin of Masuka Kane, and the next of kin of each of his squad, he said grimly. I have bad news for them. The Chunin paled, but hurried to do his Kage's bidding. Once alone, the Reikage once more braved what was in the box, wincing at what he saw. He quickly snatched the paper he saw inside and closed the box again to read the single sentence inscribed there. Our patience grows thin. Hyuga Hayashi. That's it for part 3. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.